Welcome to Srihari's lessons. Hope you enjoy your time here. Continue listening and supporting. Hello friends. In this chapter, let us discuss about tools or instruments available for making money from money. Hope you have covered previous chapters and keeping continuity. In the previous chapter, we have mentioned about availability of innumerable tools or instruments in this world for making money from money. Also, we have touched upon analysis and decision making using various analytical methods and also about various modes or channels through which you can place your money. Since all these are interconnected to each other, sequencing these as chapters is a little complicated. They are so interconnected because the instrument chosen will have influence on deciding modes or analysis methods. Mode might influence the decision on instrument or analysis methods. The method of analysis shall influence the decision on tools or modes. However, for the sake of going ahead with the series, let us start in this chapter with an introduction to tools or instruments available to apply the surplus money. At this stage, it is important to understand the history of currency as a medium of transaction. In earliest known history, the trade was basically exchange of goods. Let us say there was one person cultivating rice and there was another person cultivating mangoes. Mango and rice will be exchanged between them, resulting in a trading transaction. The ability of rice to procure certain quantity of mangoes or ability of mango to procure certain quantity of rice is called purchasing power. There have been numerous historical references, even 1000 or even 2000 years ago, when even foreigners visited India for making such trades. Even colonial powers initially came just out of trading interests to India. Slowly, with the socio-economic and cultural evolution, there came a need for a common exchange medium that can facilitate or ease out transacting. That is when people started using gold or silver or copper as a medium of exchange. At that time, each kingdom minted their own gold or silver or copper coins, and each of them used to carry different value for transaction. For example, an Indian gold coin might get, let us say, 10 garments, as against a Greek or Roman gold coin which might get us different quantity of garments. There was classification or ranking of coins of different kingdoms depending on their ability to obtain different quantity of goods. In other words, it can be called purchasing power. Later on, after industrial revolutions and globalization of trade and advent of country-based governments and federal banks under these governments, there came up different currencies for each country. And as mentioned for gold, each country currently have their currencies, and those currencies have been classified or ranked based on their purchasing power. The fundamentals of demand and supply driven economics also has an impact on the purchasing power of the different currencies. This is just an essence of the currency history. Please understand that this is not a proper lecture on this subject. If this as a subject interests you, there is enough material available on the web through a simple Google search, and maybe I can make a separate video for the same. Another generic concept that we need to touch upon now should be value of the money and need of the instruments. There is an economic or financial term called inflation. Inflation actually means the change in value of a commodity or product over a period. For example, most of you would have idea about price of groceries or vegetables in your day-to-day life. Over a long period, this price always goes up. This has so many factors working upon this result. and that is a very deep and intrinsic subject. We are not in economics classroom, and hence we are not going to discuss that in detail. Our discussion and understanding for the purpose of this series can stop at the point that there is effect of inflation in our daily life, and correspondingly money loses its value in tandem with inflation. Try to imagine this inflation along with another word we used earlier called purchasing power. Your $100 today may be capable of buying you, let us say, 1 kilogram of a product. 10 years or 20 years ago, the same $100 might have bought you 2 kilograms. This is what is called, in one perspective, inflation, working on increasing the product price, and another perspective where money value or purchasing power of money gets eroded. If you put your hard-earned money in a box and keep it in your house, that will actually lose its value over a period of time. Due to inflation, currency kept as it is will only lose its purchasing power or value over a period. Instead, that money should be put in one of the instruments which grows at least along with the rate of inflation or more than the rate of inflation, in order to keep abreast with the purchasing power requirements. This is one of the most important reasons as to why we should put our money in one of these instruments in addition to our goal of growing our wealth. Let us get back to instruments available for putting surplus money. First of all, there is an important classification that can be called as physical instruments and financial instruments. Physical instruments refer to actually buying the physical item and keeping the physical product with you until you sell it. One of the most common and classic example is gold. Financial instruments refer to getting an electronic or paper form of delivery of the value bought. One of the most common and classic examples is bank fixed deposits or equity shares of companies. This is actually pertaining to the topic of modes or channels of putting money. However, mentioning here is because this will make understanding the difference in instruments easier. As such, we will discuss this in more detail in another chapter. Coming back to instruments, let us start with mentioning the broad categories of instruments. This is not in any sequence or order of priority. As we repeatedly say, each individual is different and one has to choose the right instrument for them based on their own circumstances. Let me start saying one by one now. First one, fixed return instruments, many times also referred as debt instruments or loan instruments. Second is real property or real estate. Third is precious metals. Fourth one is non-precious metals. Fifth one is agricultural commodities. Sixth is non-agricultural commodities. Seventh is equity or shares of listed company. Eighth is equity or shares of unlisted companies. Ninth is equity or shares participation in private businesses. 10th is currencies of different countries. 11th is crypto instruments. I am ending the list here. This is not an exhaustive list, and also these are just heading or names of categories. We have to understand individual instruments at ground level and make financial decisions. We will cover in future chapters about each one of these categories and each of the different individual instruments under each of this. That will actually end up as a huge list, considering there are so many individual instruments across the world. At this juncture, I would also like to remind you about what we have discussed earlier about the meaning of the word investment. Please keep in mind that the contents discussed here need not refer to investment as per the meaning mentioned by me. Therefore, all these are going to be discussed with an intention to sell at a future date and make profits. Going forward, in future chapters, we will discuss about further breakdown of these instruments along with all the elements involved in analysis and decision making and all the channels or modes available for each of the money making instruments and managing all these in your financial journey. With that, I'll close this. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Welcome to Srihari's lessons. Hope you enjoy your time here. Continue listening and supporting.